Alright guys, we are back this week for UFC Rio preview, predictions, and breakdown. This is obviously coming out late in the week. I'm going to try to make this shorter. I want to keep it at about 30 minutes, under 30 minutes, but I'm going to try my best. So the breakdowns aren't going to be the most long, drawn-out, in-detail breakdowns, but I do have a pretty good read on the way I think most of the fights go. So we'll kick it off in bantamweight, or at bantamweight, with Lacerda versus Simon Oliveira. I just think it comes down to, I don't really see either of these guys as UFC level, quote unquote, but if I have to pick somebody to be able to execute a game plan, to be able to have the better cardio, to be able to last longer in a fight, I gotta go Lacerda. He's the much better grappler here, going up against Oliveira. And I even think he can compete with the striking. I would say Simon probably is the better striker, like tit for tat, but overall I don't think he's that great of a striker, and I think the only real way that Oliveira wins is if he lands a big shot on the feet, like just a big hook or a big straight, or if he hurts Lacerda on the feet and then locks up a sub. But I don't think he's going to be able to submit Lacerda. I think Lacerda is going to have a pretty big advantage on the ground, and like I said, I think he's going to have capable ability to compete on the feet with Oliveira as well, because Oliveira just leaves himself open. He's so defensively irresponsible that I think Lacerda could sneak some shots in as well. So it's competitive on the feet. There's a big advantage on the ground for Lacerda, but I also think Oliveira's been rocked. He's been knocked out. He's been hurt multiple times. So he is chinny enough to where you might play the sub on Lacerda, and Lacerda might hurt him with a knee in the clinch or an elbow and end up winning via knockout. So I wouldn't do anything cute with this fight. It could also go to decision if it's a primary grapple fest and Lacerda just uses a lot of top control time and doesn't get a sub or doesn't really hunt for a finish, but is clearly winning the round. So I'm going to take Lacerda. I'm going to take him to win via second round submission. I'm going to say a second round rear naked choke. I think he gets on top. Oliveira gives up his back trying to get up, and then he locks up a sub. But yeah, I don't love this fight, but I'll take the favorite in Lacerda to win via submission, round 2 RNC. All right, up next we've got a strawweight bout between, between Julia Polastri taking on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Yeah, I like Polastri here. I think that she is the more capable grappler. I think she's better from the top position. I think she can stop takedowns. I think she can get her own takedowns. But I also think she's going to use the grappling more from a defensive perspective. And I think she's very good on the feet. I think she's known primarily for her grappling, but her striking is very, very good. She's got good range management, good distance control, a solid lead hand that she uses to jab, to probe, to measure. She throws good 1-2s. She can mix it up with multi-shot combinations. She's solid in the clinch with knees and elbows, and she has good kicks as well. So I think that she also, I wouldn't necessarily say has a cardio advantage, but I think she's the fighter who will be upping the pace and pressure in the second and the third round. I mean, just go back and look at what she did to Lupita Godinez. If she started to fight like how she did in the third round, in the second round, I think she would have TKO'd Lupi, probably in the third. I mean, she was almost there in that third round, just piecing her up with combinations. Good jab, good 1-2, solid hooks, landing uppercuts, landing the jab, popping behind the jab, and just keeping her at bay. If you look at the stats for this fight, I wouldn't necessarily look at the height, but Karolina has a 0.5-inch reach advantage. I think if she's using that reach advantage, it's going to be primarily from that kicking distance, right? She's going to try to throw the jab, fire some front kicks up the middle, probably some front snap kicks, some teep kicks, and try to keep her away. And then when she gets close, try to clinch up with her knees to the body, elbows over the top. But I think she's going to do good for about a round and a half. I think towards the end of the second round and into the third round is where Polastri is going to be able to pressure Karolina, going to be able to put her on the back foot, going to be able to stop any potential takedown attempts and probably break off with framing and landing knees in the clinch and the over tie in the clinch, landing knees, landing elbows, pushing off, popping the jab, getting in close, ripping the body. And I think she's just going to overwhelm Kowalkiewicz, and I actually see a late finish. Now, it's women's MMA, so you never know. Finishes are pretty much like a unicorn in women's MMA. You think that they're there, you know they can happen, but you rarely ever see them. But I'm going to take Polastri to just overwhelm Kowalkiewicz, to have better output on the feet, to have the more pop in her shots, and to be able to use the grappling from a defensive perspective. If Carolina's getting rocked and has to shoot, I think she can stop it and break off with strikes. I'm going to go with a third round TKO for Julia Polastri. I think she's just going to overwhelm her, out-volume her, and use that crisp and clean boxing and strikes inside the clinch to just beat her up and eventually get the ref to stop it. So Polastri round 3 TKO is going to be my pick, and I do have some small plays on the Polastri KO2, which is plus 2,500, and the Polastri KO3, which I believe is plus 3,400. All right, Walker versus Usman. I don't think Usman's UFC level. He's winning fights that a lot of people don't believe he should win. He wins the Ultimate Fighter with a crazy knockout, and he's kind of just a meme fighter. Like, he does things that shouldn't work. His technique isn't the best. He's winging and looping punches, but they can clip you on the chin and they can knock you out. Muhammad Usman has a lot of power. I think Walter Walker comes out here, and I think he does what he's done in most of his other fights, which is tie up in the clinch and eventually just fall back to that heel hook, and I do not think Usman's going to be able to defend it. But what I will say is, instead of playing a Walker money line, instead of playing a Walker by finish, I like the under 2.5. It's only like minus 140, and I think what it comes down to is Walker's either going to come out, try to tie up, try to fall to his back, and play that Ashigarami game and look for his leg locks like they've been working for him in the UFC ever since his debut, or he's going to try to go for the leg locks and he's going to sell out, kind of like Nate Maness and Mateus Mendonça, if you remember that fight, where he's going to sell out for the leg locks, leave himself open, and Muhammad Usman's going to throw those big meat hocks right at his face with hammer fists and hooks as he's trying to attack the leg and potentially get a TKO. I think the later that this fight goes, it probably favors Usman, but I also think he's not that great either, so even if both guys are tired, the striking probably works better because the grappling is going to be harder, but it's also going to be harder for Usman to stop the takedowns. But I'm going to take Walter Walker. I'm going to take Walker to come out here, fall to his back, get the heel hook, and get the sub in round 1. So give me Walter Walker, round 1, heel hook submission over Muhammad Usman. But I could easily, like I said, see him falling to his back and leaving his chin exposed and getting knocked out with ground and pound from Usman as he's trying to attack the leg. So the under 2.5 is my favorite play, but the official pick is going to be Walter Walker by submission in round 1. All right, next fight up is in the flyweight division. You got a battle between Luque Rocha taking on Stuart Nicoll. Yeah, this is a tough fight because Nicoll came into the UFC, took on Jesus Aguilar in his debut. He had a lot of hype, and he shot a bad takedown and immediately got guillotined and submitted in the first round and went to sleep. And then Luque Rocha, he comes off the Contender Series after knocking out Davi Bittencourt with that knee right up the middle, and he comes into the UFC, and he doesn't really have much to say for himself. Like, he gets absolutely dominated, outclassed, taken down, and submitted by Clayton Carpenter, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then, I believe that was his UFC debut. Let me check. Yeah, so that was his UFC debut. He got submitted. It was in round 2. I think I said round 1, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But that's that's actually about a year to the day when he's coming back after getting submitted by Clayton Carpenter. Stuart Nicoll's a good grappler. He has good submissions in his own right, so I do think that the smart thing to do for him would be to exploit the grappling, try to take him down, get on top, try to take his back and get a submission. I think on the feet, it's Luque Rocha's fight to win all day. I'm not saying I think Stuart Nicoll's a bad striker, but I think there's a clear advantage on the ground for Nicoll, and there's a clear advantage on the feet for Luque Rocha. Rocha can throw some awkward combinations and awkward strikes. He was even piecing up Clayton Carpenter a little bit on the feet. I'm going to take Luque Rocha. I'm going to take the slight underdog. I'm not going to be surprised if he gets taken down and gets submitted, but I think he's going to be good enough to probably defend a little bit of the takedowns. I think the striking on the feet will be competitive, but I think Rocha is just going to have more pop in his shots and be the better technical striker overall. 17-2 versus 8-1, so huge experience advantage on the Rocha side. But yeah, I'm going to take Luque Rocha to be the better overall striker and be able to defend much of the grappling. If Nicoll wins, it's probably taking him down, getting his back and getting a submission. I would say Nicoll probably wins by rear naked choke or if he falls to his back and locks up a triangle. So that wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to say Rocha comes back and doesn't get subbed for the second time in a row and keeps the fight on the feet, outstrikes Nicoll, and eventually knocks him out. I'm going to go with Luque Rocha to win via round 2 TKO over Stuart Nicoll. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Give me the Brazilian in Brazil. All right, next fight up is in the heavyweight division. You have a battle between Vitor Petrino taking on Thomas the Train Peterson. I'm going to keep this simple, man. Thomas Peterson doesn't really have much to offer on the feet. Maybe a solid jab, good forward pressure, but he's mainly a wrestler. He's mainly a grappler. I don't see him taking down and controlling Vitor Petrino. I don't see him taking down and submitting Vitor Petrino. And I don't see him getting a ground and pound TKO, which means either Petrino's going to be on top of Peterson, beating him up with ground and pound and potentially looking for a submission due to the lack of grappling IQ that most heavyweights have. And Petrino with the quote-unquote lighter man skill moving up to heavyweight got a sub in his last fight. I could easily see him taking down and submitting Thomas Peterson, but to be honest, I kind of think he's going to use the grappling from a defensive perspective, kind of like I said with Rocha, with Julia Polastri. But for this one, I think Petrino's going to keep it on the feet, and I think he's just going to piece up Thomas Peterson. I mean, if you're getting knocked out in round 1 by Shamil the Blob Gaziev, or Shamil the Blob Gaziev, however you want to say his last name, I think Petrino's going to light you the fuck up, and I think he probably is going to knock you out. Like, genuinely speaking, I don't think Peterson has much to offer on the feet aside from Petrino leaving his hands down and getting hit with a right hand. Like, that wouldn't surprise me because I don't think Petrino is that good. I don't think Petrino is championship level. I think Petrino makes a lot of mistakes, and I think he relies too much on his movement when he's not really that fast in terms of his footwork, and that leads him to get caught, kind of like it did with Dustin Jacoby. He tried to fight that hands down, play around, he was dominating, and then boom, gets KO'd. I think maybe like a meme knockout with a big right hand from Peterson could happen, but I don't see a world where he really takes down Vitor Petrino, gets on top, controls him, and eventually subs him or ground and pounds him, and I don't think he's going to control him for 15 minutes in a 15-minute fight. So I think Petrino, like I said, uses the grappling defensively. I think he pieces him up on the feet, and I think he knocks him out in round 2. So give me Vitor Petrino to win round 2 knockout. I think he catches him with that left hook, sits him down, and the ref calls it off. Give me Vitor Petrino, round 2 knockout over Thomas Peterson. I like him here, and I think he looks good again at heavyweight. All right, next fight up is in the flyweight division. You have a battle between Jafel Filho taking on Clayton Carpenter. I'm going to get a lot of flack here, but I like Carpenter, man. I think Jafel Filho has a lot of quit in him. I think that if the fight is not going his way, he will tend to wilt to opposition. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen him come back after getting hurt multiple times, kind of like the Daniel Barrez fight. But I kind of think that was like a one-off, man. Like, he got hurt so many times, and Barrez just didn't follow up, and he let him back up, and then eventually he gets taken down, gets controlled, and Filho finds the submission. I don't think if Carpenter's hurting Jafel Filho on the feet, I don't see a scenario where he's just going to be able to pull out a submission, unless it's like a heel hook from the Ashigarami game or like playing with the leg lock game. Like maybe he could fall into a knee bar, maybe he could fall into a leg lock. But Carpenter is a very solid grappler in his own right. And I think he does get tired later on in the fight, but I also think Filho is a guy who will almost all the time, historically in every fight, if it gets that far, he's usually going to be tired in the 3rd round, okay? And he's usually going to get tired in a mainly grappling contest. I think that Filho probably has the better technical striking, but I also think Carpenter has more determination. He has more like what we like to call piss and vinegar. Like he's going to come forward and he's going to try to crack you. He's going to try to hit you with a big shot, and he's going to try to prove a point and play in the grappling with Jafel Filho. I think Filho likes to play a lot of the grappling off of his back, which is going to play right into the game of Clayton Carpenter and allow for Carpenter to get a lot of top time, allow for Carpenter to eventually advance position, and it wouldn't shock me one bit if Carpenter actually locks up a submission here. I know we're in Brazil. I know Filho's Brazilian. A lot of people are going to play that hometown advantage and everything like that, but it makes sense to me why Carpenter is the favorite. I think UFC competition level, people might look to Filho and say, oh, well, he's fought the better guys. And that is true, but he's been in the UFC longer, at least with the amount of fights. And Carpenter hasn't really had the opportunity to fight, heavy competition yet. I mean, he won his last fight, or he lost his last fight to Tagir Ulanbekov, got taken down, got controlled, got out-grappled. But Filho doesn't have the wrestling and the control and the strength in the wrestling department that a Tagir has. And I think Carpenter can scramble with Filho, can end up on top, can beat him up, and can actually submit Jafel Filho. Like maybe it's a ground and pound TKO, maybe it's a submission. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Clayton Carpenter gets a submission here and gets the job done via a second-round rear naked choke. I could see it being in the third round if it's a close 2 rounds and Carpenter just has that extra oomph to push him forward. I think Filho will give up positions the later that fights go. I think Filho will surrender positions, especially in the grappling, and he's not easy to submit, but I think Carpenter's good enough from the top. I mean, he's a multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. Like, the guy has grappling chops, and I think he can hang with Filho, so I'm going to say it's competitive for like 2 rounds, and then in the third round, I think Carpenter starts to get more takedowns, top control time, and I think Filho eventually gives up his back and gets rear naked choked. So give me Clayton Carpenter. Give me Carpenter to win by a third round rear naked choke submission over Jafel Filho here. All right, next fight up is in the featherweight division. You have a battle between Lucas Almeida taking on Nicoll Aswell. 10-3 for Nicoll Aswell, 15-4 for Lucas Almeida. Listen, man, I think that the volume and the cardio is on the side of Nicoll Aswell. I think that he is much more of a volume and output guy than a power, sit you down with his shots and knockout guy. He's got good power, good boxing. A lot of the majority of his success, or the majority of his success, I should say, does come from the boxing range. He's not really going to piece you up in the clinch. He's not really going to take you down. He's not really going to out-wrestle you and out-grapple you. I think that's really what you need to beat a guy like Lucas Almeida, is to be able to have the grappling in your back pocket, be able to have the wrestling, be able to have the submissions in order to win. I think that Almeida will get tired the longer the fight goes, but if you give him a primarily striking matchup, you're giving him a chance to win at every stretch of the imagination. I mean, the guy's got a good jab, a solid 1-2. He's got a vicious left hook. Just ask Michael Trezano about it. And even in the fight he lost recently against Danny Silva, that was a split decision, you know, and a lot of people thought that the fight could have gone to Almeida, and he was competitive. Like, he got hurt at a certain point, but he was competitive on the feet, and they were going tit for tat, and they were throwing down in the pocket. If he can stand and trade with a guy like Danny Silva, I think he should have less to worry about in terms of getting hit with big shots and being knocked out from Nicoll Aswell. But I think if he overcommits and throws big power shots and hurts Aswell, but doesn't get him out of there, that maybe Aswell could come on in the third round or at the end of the second round and start to overwhelm and drain Lucas Almeida's gas tank, and then he can get like a attritional finish or a TKO via attritional finish, like a striking, I don't know what I'm saying, I'm speaking over my words, but I think he can get an attritional TKO where he just overwhelms him with the volume, tires him out, and Almeida just can't come back with the offense. So I think Nicoll Aswell to win in round 3. Nicoll Aswell via TKO is live, but I gotta go Lucas Almeida here. I just think he's got the bigger shots in a fight where I think the bigger shots are what's going to matter. I think if anybody's going to rock or knock down their opponent with a big shot, I think it's Almeida. If anybody's going to cut their opponent with big shots, it's Almeida. And that's really what I think. I think this plays out very similarly to a fight. I can't think of it off the top of my head. The fight that Almeida had with Timmy Kwamba. Okay, go back and watch the Timmy Kwamba fight. I know Kwamba's mainly a grappler, but he likes to strike as well. I think it kind of plays out similar, where maybe the output and the volume is on the Aswell side, but the bigger shots, the bigger fight-ending shots, the shots that cause more damage are going to be on the side of Lucas Almeida, and I think Almeida's live for a knockout as well. You know, Aswell hung in there with Polastri. I think Almeida is a better striker than Polastri. I think Oki's good, but I just think Almeida is, I don't know if he's better technically, but I feel like he puts things together better in the octagon, at least from what we've seen, you know, from the litmus test and the performances we've seen. And I don't think Aswell's going to KO him. I think Aswell, like I said, round 3 is live. But I'm going to say Almeida lands the bigger shots. I'm going to say Almeida lands the bigger fight-ending shots, rocks Aswell, or just lands the more impactful shots over 15 minutes in what's primarily going to be a striking fight. And I think he wins this fight by decision. So give me Lucas Almeida, 29-28 split decision. I think it's going to be close, but I think he wins via decision by landing the more impactful shots over 15 minutes. All right, up next we've got Ricardo Ramos taking on Khan Ofli. Ramos 17-7, Ofli 12-4-1. This is a fight where I really don't want to pick a winner. I think that the fighter who's much better on the feet is Ricardo Ramos. I think the fighter who's better on the ground is probably Ofli. Ofli's probably going to have the better wrestling, the better top control, the better grappling, and if he takes down Ramos, we know that Ramos has quit in him. That's the only reason why I would never go out on a limb and pick Ricardo Ramos to win a fight, because the guy has quit in him. He will quit, but he's got decent striking on the feet, decent kicks, and a lot of spinning elbows. But those spinning elbows can open up the opportunity for Ofli to take his back and bring him to the ground, where I think Ofli's live to get a submission. You know, if Ofli's going to win, I think it's going to be top control time, ground and pound, and eventually setting up a sub. I mean, we've seen Ricardo Ramos get submitted how many times in the UFC? We've seen him give up in positions where he could have gotten out and he gets submitted. The guillotine is the main finishing technique when Ramos is getting submitted. I mean, we've seen him get caught in guillotines multiple times. I think Ramos is live on the feet. I think Ramos is live to knock out Ofli on the feet with one of those head kicks or with one of his spinning back fists or spinning elbows as Ofli tries to crash in the pocket. I think the under 2.5 is the best way to play this fight. I don't think it goes the distance. I think it's either Ramos catching Ofli on the feet and knocking him out, or him emptying the tank on the feet and eventually getting taken down, controlled, and eventually submitted by Ofli. So I think it's Ricardo Ramos by knockout or Ofli by submission. My first instinct on this fight when I saw it on paper was to take Ofli, so I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to take Ofli to win this fight via submission. I'm going to go Ofli round 2 rear naked choke sub, but would not surprise me if Ramos knocked him out on the feet. I'm not confident in my overall pick, but I do like the under 2.5. I think that at plus 110 is a pretty solid play, and I think it's live via a knockout from Ramos or a sub from Ofli before we get to that 12.5 minute mark. So the official pick's going to be Ofli by submission, but would not surprise me one bit if Ramos came out here and got the knockout. All right, next fight up is in the heavyweight division. You got a battle between Jonathan Diniz taking on Mario Pinto. 10-0 for Pinto, 9-1 for Jonathan Diniz. I don't expect grappling in this fight. I think this fight plays out primarily on the feet, and it's a primary striking match between two strikers. I think Pinto is the fighter who has the more one-hitter quitter knockout ability, but with Jonathan Diniz, we've only seen him lose once in his MMA career. We've seen him lose on the ground via ground and pound TKO. I think if Pinto's smart, he should look for takedowns and should look to wrestle, but I think for the most part, this fight's going to play out on the feet. I think the more technical striker, the better point fighter, and the fighter who's better at just picking his shots is Jonathan Diniz. I think he's better at using his jab. He's better at using fakes and feints, finding the openings for the right hand and the left hook, and chopping the leg kicks. I think the later that this fight goes, it plays into the game of Jonathan Diniz, who has gone 15 minutes and won a fight primarily on the feet over 15 minutes in the UFC. I think Mario Pinto is definitely live to get a knockout here. The guy hits very hard, but he was getting pieced up a little bit by Austin Lane. Austin Lane was hitting him on the feet. He was landing big shots. He was piecing him up a little bit. I don't really know which way I want to go on this fight. I would rather, if I'm picking who I want to win, I would want Mario Pinto to win. Like, just off of who I want to win, I would say Pinto, but I think Jonathan Diniz is cleaner, he's more technical, and if you're getting pieced up by Austin Lane on the feet, I don't really know what to say when you're going up against a fighter who isn't going to look to grapple and is much better and more cerebral and more tactical on the feet. So, overall, I'm going to take Jonathan Diniz, but I want Pinto to win. I think the fight ends with somebody hitting the deck either way, but I'm going to take Jonathan Diniz to just outstrike, outmaneuver, and use his footwork and range management to eventually knock out Mario Pinto. Give me Jonathan Diniz to win round 1 knockout over Mario Pinto, but if Pinto came in here and landed a big left hook or a right hand and knocked out Diniz, it wouldn't surprise me. But give me Diniz, round 1 KO. I think he catches Pinto on the chin and puts him down. All right, up next is a battle in the welterweight division between the silent assassin Vicente Luque taking on Joel Alvarez, moving up to 170, making his welterweight debut. I'm going to keep this short and sweet, guys. I got Joel Alvarez winning. I got him finishing Luque, and I got him finishing Luque in the first 2 rounds. Alvarez is too long, too rangy, and too adept at keeping the fight at his range, but also not being afraid to get into the pocket and trade. I think Luque has a very good cover counter with his left hook, and I think the best shot for him in this entire fight are going to be the calf kicks and the left hook. If he's going to win this fight, if he's going to hurt Alvarez, it's going to be by causing Alvarez to get in too close and then just firing over the top with the left hook. But I think as he goes to throw that left hook, Alvarez is going to be getting in his face, getting on the inside, and throwing big elbows and knees in the clinch that are going to hurt Luque. I think he's going to rock him. I think he's going to force Luque to panic wrestle and shoot because the striking isn't going his way, and I think that Alvarez is going to lock up his neck and submit him. I think Joel Alvarez wins this fight by Darce choke. I think he wins the fight by Darce choke in either the first or the second round. I'm going to say round 1 because I just think he's going to overwhelm Luque. I think Luque is going to throw some shots back. I think Luque is going to come in and throw some big shots, but this is going to be a more ready Joel Alvarez, a fighter who has more weight on his bones, a fighter who is more hydrated, and he's going to be able to take a shot better. And don't get me wrong, if Luque came in and knocked him out, I would be surprised, but it wouldn't shock me because Luque is a great striker. But overall, I just don't really think that's going to happen. I think that even if he gets in and tries to throw bombs in the pocket, I think Alvarez beats him there. I think he lands elbows. I think he lands knees. And I think he rocks him and forces Luque to panic wrestle, kind of like what happened in the fight with Kevin Holland. So I'm going to take Joel Alvarez via club and sub. Give me Alvarez round 1, Darce choke submission over Vicente Luque. I love Luque, but I think this is a terrible matchup for him, and I think Alvarez subs him. All right, up next, we got a battle in the bantamweight division between Montel Jackson getting a huge step up in competition, going up against the former flyweight champion and the pretty successful bantamweight in Davison Figueiredo. Yeah, this is a fight that's very confusing to me. I don't understand why Figueiredo is such a big underdog. I think that Figueiredo, I think maybe he's at the tail end of his career and that plays a factor, but I don't really think Montel Jackson has done anything supremely impressive aside from knocking out Damon Blackshear in the first round with a big shot. I think people are expecting Montel Jackson to win by knockout, and I think it's possible. You know, Figueiredo's been rocked. He's been hurt before, but I've never seen Figueiredo get one-shotted, and I don't really think Montel Jackson is the fighter to one-shot KO Davison Figueiredo. I think he leaves a lot of openings on the feet, and I think Figueiredo leaves openings himself, but I think Figueiredo is just, he has too much experience to lose to a guy like Montel Jackson. I think Figueiredo can out-grapple Montel. I do think Montel is going to be strong. He's big, he's powerful, he's strong, and the power could be the biggest factor. But like I said, aside from a knockout, I don't see Montel Jackson beating Figueiredo, and I don't even like Figueiredo. But if he's not knocking him out, he's not winning. And I think Figueiredo's live to lock up his neck. If he tries to wrestle and hold him down, he could get caught in a guillotine and submitted. I mean, Figueiredo's good off of his back looking for leg locks and submissions. But I think the injury that he suffered against Sandhagen plays a factor here. But, you know, Montel's not much of a leg kicker, so I don't really see that knee problem being a factor unless he's trying to tie up and look for leg locks and pops his own knee against Jackson. Like, that's a possibility, but I think Figueiredo can outstrike him. I think Figueiredo can out-grapple him, and I think Figueiredo can just do enough to win a close fight, man. I don't understand this. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm crazy. I think Montel is good, but I don't think he's good enough to beat Figueiredo. I think Figueiredo can land the better strikes. I think Figueiredo can lock up submissions if Montel tries to wrestle. I think Figueiredo can get takedowns of his own and wrestle himself. Yeah, I'm going to take Figueiredo to win by decision. I think the price is off, and I don't like I said, I don't like Figueiredo. So don't take this as me being a fan of Figueiredo and picking him. I don't like him. I don't like Figueiredo. So I am going to take Figueiredo to win. I think he wins by decision. 29-28 unanimous decision for Davison Figueiredo. I just think he has more weapons. I think he can do more. I think he can wrestle. I think he can look for subs. I think he can land the cleaner shots on the feet. And I think he can use a little bit better footwork too than Montel. So give me Davison Figueiredo, 29-28 unanimous decision, winning 2 out of the 3 rounds as the big underdog. Now we're at the main event of the evening in the lightweight division. Charles do Bronx Oliveira taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Yeah, this is a fight that I really just don't see Gamrot winning. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, people are going to look at the Oliveira loss to Poirier, and he's coming back like 3-4 months after getting not just knocked out, but knocked out cold and knocked out brutally. And I do think that plays a factor, right? You know, Gamrot, his striking has gotten better. He has a good jab, a solid 1-2. But I don't really see him hurting Oliveira on the feet. Like, there's always that possibility, you know, especially when people aren't expecting you to have success on the feet, you can. And I think Gamrot's striking from when he got into the UFC to now, I think it's gotten a lot better. but I don't think he's going to be able to stay on the feet with Oliveira for very long, number one. Number two, I think when he's shooting takedowns, he's going to leave himself open to get caught in a guillotine. He's going to leave himself open to get caught in an arm triangle, to get caught in a Darce choke from Oliveira. Oliveira is very heavy on attacking the neck on takedown attempts, and that might make Gamrot a little bit hesitant. I do think Gamrot will get at least a couple takedowns here. And I think from the top position, he's mainly just going to win off a top control time. And in a 25-minute fight, I don't see him being able to control Oliveira for 25 minutes. I don't see him being able to submit Charles Oliveira, because we've seen Oliveira get submitted before, but I don't think Gamrot's going to be the guy to do it, because a lot of the times if he's getting a submission, they don't really come from chokes. It's mainly like arm locks or, Kimuras, or looking to set up the Kimura trap. And, he'll go for rear naked chokes here and there, but I don't see him getting those on Oliveira. So that eliminates 33.3% of his ability to win. I don't see the fight going to a decision. I just don't. I don't think this is a fight that I see going 25 minutes based on the guys who are in there. And I don't think Gamrot, he's good on the feet. He's gotten better. But I don't see him being able to just outstrike Oliveira for a prolonged period of time. Maybe if he tires out Oliveira, continuously pushes with the wrestling, and just exhausts him to a point where we get to the midpoint of the third round and into the fourth round, and he gets exhausted, and then Oliveira just gives up position and potentially gets submitted. But I don't see that, and I don't see Gamrot having that much success. And I think on the feet, he's going to be very uncomfortable. I think Oliveira is very good in the clinch, and if Gamrot's going to be shooting a lot of takedowns, I think he's going to be live to sprawl and grab his neck, and I think he's going to be live to catch him coming in with some knees and elbows and battering him up in the clinch and landing right hands at range. If a guy like Beneil Dariush can drop you, I think Oliveira can fuck you up. And that's really what it comes down to. I see Oliveira winning this fight. I see Oliveira finishing this fight. And the question is, do you see it with a submission or a knockout? Honestly, I think I see a KO, because I think Gamrot's defense on the feet just isn't that great. I think he's gotten better. Like I said, I think he's improved since he's gotten into the UFC, but he's not really going to be able to compete with Oliveira on the feet. The only thing that makes me a little weary and a little hesitant in terms of betting Oliveira and betting Oliveira moneyline or finish is because we don't know what the after effects of that Ilia Topuria knockout are going to be. Maybe before Gamrot wasn't able to knock out, or wouldn't have been able to knock out Oliveira, but maybe now he can't take the same shots that he did before, and he gets hit with a right hand and gets put down, and then Gamrot pounces on him with some ground and pound and finishes him off. If you told me that happened, I would be surprised, but I would be like, he just got knocked out by Ilia. Ilia is one of the hardest hitting fighters in any division in the UFC, so I could see how those after effects could play in. I'm a little bit worried to play Charles, whether it's inside the distance or money line. If I'm going to play it, I would probably lean towards the ITD, which I think is plus 150 right now. But just based off the knockout of Topuria, I'm a little bit worried. But I do think Oliveira has the advantages in basically every area of this fight besides the wrestling and the chain wrestling. And I don't see Gamrot being able to do that for 25 minutes. So I'm going to take Charles Oliveira. I'm going to take him by knockout. Give me Charles Do Bronx Oliveira, round 2 TKO against Mateusz Gamrot. I could easily see it being a sub. We'll say he wins in round 2. Give me Oliveira, Do Bronx to get back on track. Round 2 knockout over Mateusz Gamrot. All right, that's it for my UFC Rio Oliveira versus Gamrot preview, predictions, and breakdown. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell, or lock the notification bell in your favorite submission so you don't miss any future uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out.